Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I am your host Paul, and this video we're breaking down the 7th episode of Lovecraft Country, titled I Am. See, we only do highbrow jokes here. Now I just want to get straight into the breakdown, but if you're new to the channel then be warned that there will be spoilers for the entire episode, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet then I highly recommend that you turn off this video until you've watched it. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this, let's get into Lovecraft Country. Okay, so the episode title this time is pretty straightforward, with us following Hippolyta as she attempts to define who she really is. She goes through a wealth of journeys in this entry that are enabled by her saying I am, and then a suffix of what she wants to be. The title itself could be referencing a number of works, ranging from books to movies. Now the most notable examples of these are of course I Am Legend, which was both a film and book. There's also I Am, The Power of Discovering Who You Really Are by Howard Falco, and I Am, which is a 2010 film. This is an anthology of 4 short films that depicts the struggles of individuals as they try to find their identity in an unsympathetic world. All of these apply to this entry I feel, but let me know if there's anything else that you think should make the list. By now, the director of the show has probably come out and said something that's made me look stupid, so thanks in advance for that. Now we pick up with Hippolyta scrawling over notes on the Ori, which we learn she's become obsessed with after discovering the truth about George. We revisit the lodge with her to find it in the runes that Tick left it in, and here she finds the cover for Orithia Blue, a character that Dee invented, and throughout this episode, Hippolyta pretty much becomes her. Now after crashing out on the bed and staring at the Ori, she realizes that the panels of it have to be tilted to actually rotate how they are on their axis, and this opens up the central sun, which holds a key and some coordinates. Now coordinates actually become extremely important in the entry, and they not only dictate a location, but also its place in time and space. This is something known as spacetime, which in physics takes the 3 dimensions of space and fuses it with a point in time to create one precise number. For example, if you went to the coffee shop this morning at 8:30 AM, we would not only have a location for you, but also the date the 28th of September 2020 at 8:30 AM. If we built a time machine, we'd be able to input the exact coordinates of the location and then the time and date to go back to that precise moment when you ordered that delicious coffee, which I wish I was having now. Now, throughout the episode, Hippolyta uses space-time coordinates to go on a lot of adventures, and I just want to give a shout outs to Sheriff of Baddie on Reddit for marking out the actual points on this diagram to show where she jumps to. Now, the inscription on the Ori reads every beginning is in time and every limit of extension in space. I've tried looking this up, but I can't find anything related to it, so let me know if you have any idea where the quote originates from. After the reveal that Christina was in fact William, Ruby has a lot of questions, and we join them in the off-limits basement of the former's house. We did theorise that Christina was actually taking the blood from William and Dell's body, and here we get that confirmed with her explaining the inner workings of the transformation potion. It does seem that Dell actually died all the way back in episode 2, and that Christina has been harvesting her since then. To top it off, we learn that Christina and William were actually in love, and like we guessed, he did die at the hands of Captain Lancaster. Neither William or Christina were in the book, but I feel like they've been woven into the story really nicely here, and it sets up a much more intense rivalry between her and Lancaster than was in the source material. We learn that because Christina's father wouldn't teach her how to use magic due to her gender, that she sought out William and seduced him. Initially she just wanted to learn magic to impress her father, but now her ambition goes far beyond that, and we see this mirrored in Ruby, who wants to be so much more than the expectations that are set out for her. There's also an interesting line in which Christina says that the words coming from William's mouth were actually her own, and that she had grown feelings for her, which I think will set up a lot of big twists down the line. They also mention the lost pages in the Book of Names being tied to Ruby's family, which is when we jump to her sister Letty having a dream about Hannah escaping the burning lodge. We discovered that Letty is in fact pregnant, and there are other teasers throughout the episode, such as her hating the smell of garlic, another common sign of being with child. Being with child. I really need to widen my vocabulary. Now, I have seen some people theorize that this could hint that Letty is actually related to Tick, and we all know HBO loves a good incest storyline. However, I don't think that's the case. This is the first time that Letty has actually had a dream like this, and I think the new life inside of her, being Tick's child, has also meant that the baby within her is feeding visions of its ancestors. Tick has started to translate the pages, and he's about halfway there, but really struggling with getting his head around it. He realizes that because the pair had a similar dream, that Hannah could be trying to send them a message. Being sent these warnings by Hannah could give them a distinct advantage over Christina and Captain Lancaster, and they may be able to find the book faster. Tick sets out to discover more about his family, namely his mother's side, and he journeys to Montrose's, who spent the night with Sammy. Sammy discusses how he bumped into a woman who said they bought an African scarf at Marshall Fields, even though no black people worked there. This is a callback to Ruby's storyline, who had to change into a white woman in order to get a job at the store. It does seem that Tamara did get fired, as Sammy says he hasn't seen a black girl in there, and as we know, the manager Paul was looking to get rid of her. Tick arrives to find him and Sammy in the middle of a fight, and he realizes that Tree was telling the truth. We learn that Tick's mother did in fact know about Montrose's sexuality, and this is likely why she had an affair with George. I think it adds a lot of weight to George actually being Tick's father, and I do believe that the character will return through the use of time travel. In the book, the character didn't die, and he was quite a big part of it, so I do think that they will be bringing him back at some point beyond what we see throughout this entry. Tick leaves after calling him the F word, and Letty stays behind to learn about his family. She discovers that Tick's mother had a cousin that lived in Tulsa, and that she also survived the riots. Tick heads out to St. Louis to discover what's going on, but he's clearly shaken up by his father's revelation. Now, we did theorize that Montrose's father beat him so badly because he knew his son was gay, and that he married a woman in order to avoid persecution by both his dad and society. He in turn beat Atticus when he was younger because that's how he was raised, and also he had trouble dealing with the fact that he was living a lie. We see this almost generational violence being passed on from father to son, and get the idea of history repeating itself. It's more harrowing because we now know that Tick is going to become a father, and he could end up going down the same path as both his dad and grandfather. Tick has a darker side to him, which we've now seen firsthand, and it'll be interesting to see how things play out with him and his child. They head to Hippolyta to ask if they can borrow the car Woody in order to drive there, but H is raging because she knows they lied about George. H refuses to hand it over, and Letty stays behind to talk to Ruby, who's babysitting Dee. This is the first time they've spoken since their big fight over the money, and Ruby forgives her, but doesn't mention the Order of the Ancient Dawn, so I actually think that she might still be working for Christina. In the book, Ruby was pretty much addicted to the elixir, and she ended up doing way more jobs than just planting the medallion. Though I think she's probably broken the potion's hold on her, perhaps she hasn't broken Christina's, and still is in her pocket. We later see Letty playing cards with the kids really badly, and one of the boys asks when Bobo is coming back, as he knew how to play. Bobo was actually the nickname of Emmett Till, who popped up in an earlier episode, and in real life Till was sadly murdered by a white mob, and thus we as an audience know he's not going to be coming back. On the road, H heads to the coordinates on the Ori, and we can hear her listening to Josephine Baker singing in French. Baker pops up later in the episode, and the pair meet in Paris, so this is a nice bit of foreshadowing. Bessie Stringfield also passes her on a motorbike, and Bessie was actually a real-life figure who was the first black woman to ride across the US. She was also a dispatch rider for the US Army in the Second World War, and I love how the show has these legendary figures popping up from time to time. H arrives at the observatory in Mayfield, and those that have read the book will instantly recognize this location as Hiram Epstein's. Tick ends up getting the bus to St. Louis where he meets his mother's cousin to talk about the Book of Names, but unfortunately she says it was burned in the riots, though we don't know if this is true or not. Now we realise that Tick and his cousin have the same birthmark on their skin, and this could indicate that they are indeed from the same bloodline as Titus Braithwaite. I believe that Lancaster wishes to sacrifice people connected to the Elder in order to gain his power and knowledge, and this is what Montrose and Gia have been trying to warn him about. Letty has discovered the Ori, and she rings Tick to tell him the coordinates. Ruby is also spying on her, which further adds to our theory. Now, Hippolyta finds a lock similar to the one on the Ori, and after placing in the key, she works out the math required to start it up. I love how she jots this down on the travel guide, as she of course travels across the universe, and again, nice bit of foreshadowing which I appreciate. Now, during this, Lancaster's forces arrive, and we learn that they've been at the location keeping tabs on it. Lancaster knows of this because he and Hiram work together, and Tig arrives as they start to question her. She falls against the machine which powers it up, and I love in TV shows and movies when someone bangs against a machine and it instantly starts working. Just hit it as hard as you can. Now a portal opens which sucks H in, and she's hurtled across time and space. You're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. That was terrible. That was such a bad impression. She lands on a planet, which is where she comes face to face with some robotic looking extraterrestrials. She's taken to a strange looking room and ends up donning some overalls that look like Ripley's in Alien. I don't know if that's just me reaching, but she's greeted by a giant alien with an afro who's named Serafina, aka Beyonce Say in the credits. This is obviously a reference to Beyonce and the French word say, which further ties back to Paris. Now an interesting bit about this scene is that the coordinates change very slightly even though she's in the same location. This is to demonstrate time itself changing, and it is a confirmation of the space-time coordinates. She takes apart the table and, using a piece of it, pries open the circuitry on the door, which unlocks it. Just as she's about to escape, Serafina returns and blasts her back, this time commanding that she names herself. She says she wants to be dancing on stage in Paris with Josephine Baker and is instantly transported to this location. Josephine Baker was an American-born French entertainer that was also a civil rights activist and French resistance member. There's also an appearance by Frida Kahlo, who was a famous artist. As for H, she gets her very own Moulin Rouge, and judging by the change in the coordinates, H spends months and months at this location. She might have even bumped into a younger Sammy, but again, probably reaching there again. Now H says something very interesting to Josephine that reflects what Christina said earlier in the episode. She states, "All those years I thought I had everything I ever wanted, only to come here and discover that all I ever was the exact kind of black woman white folks wanted me to be. I feel like they just found a smart way to lynch me without me noticing a noose. I just want to kill white folks, and it's not just them. I hate me for letting them make me feel so small." It's laced with a lot of subtext that shows she pretty much had to turn herself into a shallow commodity in order to be someone. Realizing that she has to go beyond what she's discovered, she says, "I am Hippolyta," which transfers her to an alternate dimension in which she trains with an African Amazonian tribe. In classical Greek mythology, Hippolyta was actually the queen of the Amazons, which I think this is riffing on. This confirms the many worlds theory, which states that alternate realities exist in which all events and outcomes are possible. The tribe are training to battle a band of white Confederate soldiers, and H again spends countless days working towards the showdown. I also kinda got a Princess of Mars vibes here, which is a book that has appeared in the series. The battle is awesome, and H and co completely decimate the soldiers. Using what she said to Josephine, she inspires the group even more, and soldiers run towards them, but H holds down the L and R buttons in Final Fantasy and escapes, proclaiming that she's George's wife. Now this is clearly another alternate dimension in which George didn't die. George is over the moon that she had endless possibilities, but still chose to be his wife out of all of them. Though it's a happy moment, she realizes that George in many ways held her back, and states that he dulled her shine. George of course didn't want her to have any part in the guidebook creation, and thus this stifled her progress and in fact led to his death. She states that she wished to name something out of this world, and this is a callback to the book in which the character named Pluto but was beaten by a white girl who was able to send communication to the registry office before her due to using a telegram. It's also hinted at earlier in the season when a similar situation happened with a comet, and H was not given credit due to the competition runners not wishing to have a black girl's face on their publishing. She finally gets this off her chest, and George said he did this in order to keep her safe, but as we've seen, she's more than capable of handling herself. H proclaims herself as Hippolyta Discoverer, and together the two land on something that looks like it belongs in No Man's Sky. Also love how the spaceship is actually similar and looks to the car Woody, and we hear the words of Sun Ra in the background. They travel throughout the universe, creating their own travel guide of this alien solar system in what is truly a beautiful scene. She reunites with Serafina, who offers her a place in her society, but Hippolyta instead chooses to return home in order to be Dee's mother. Though she has expanded beyond all things, this time it's her choice to shrink down rather than someone else's. Tig is thrown out of the portal, and it seems like he too has gone on his own journey, and he now carries the actual book Lovecraft Country. It's a fourth wall breaking moment, and I wonder if he's now travelled to our universe in order to get the piece of fiction, which will of course contain the Book of Names. As for next week, I'm not sure I can even spoil this, as it looks pretty alien from the book, with the show clearly diverting from the source material. It seems like Captain Lancaster has captured Dee, and he's questioning her about magic. Elsewhere, we also see Ruby drink a potion, perhaps hinting that she will be transforming back into Dell. It looks like Tick is actually creating an uprising against the police, and Lancaster seems to be getting much more of a focus, so it does seem like he will be going head to head with the group now. Christina seems to be working with Tick too, which that's a bit more in line with the book, but yeah, still a lot of things up in the air. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode, so make sure you comment below and let me know. Don't forget we're also giving away a free copy of the Christopher Nolan collection, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below. The winner is going to be chosen at random on the 30th of September, so make sure you get involved. If you want to support the channel and get to see content early, then please consider clicking the join button below. You can also come chat to us on our Discord server linked in the description, or Heavy Spoilers on Twitter. Thanks for making it until the end of the video, you've been the best, I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.